For 2 decades, her empire stood on a simple idea: be kind. It echoed through her show, her merchandise, and her public identity. Millions embraced it, trusting the warmth behind her smile. Yet, in a stunning reversal, those same words became the sharpest tool used against her. What happens when the image you build becomes the standard you're judged by? This is not just a story of fame or failure. It's a story about identity, survival, and the hidden cost of living in the public eye while carrying a private past that never fully fades. Roots in Louisiana. A quiet beginning. She was born into what looked like an ordinary Southern life, surrounded by familiarity and unspoken expectations. Her home was filled with laughter in its early years, shaped by a warm mother and a steady father. On the surface, everything seemed stable, but beneath that calm exterior, subtle fractures were forming. In a place where standing out was discouraged, she learned early how to blend in while quietly observing everything. Those observations would later become her voice, but at the time, they were simply survival instincts forming in the background of an unremarkable childhood. The break that changed everything. At 13, her parents divorced, and the emotional foundation of her life shifted overnight. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was deeply disorienting. The security she once relied on vanished, replaced by uncertainty and quiet emotional strain. This moment marked the end of one version of her life and the beginning of another. Humor, which had once been playful, became something more intentional. It became a shield. She learned how to read a room, soften tension and make people laugh, not for applause, but to restore balance in moments that felt like they might otherwise fall apart. Silent struggles and unspoken pain. The years following the divorce were complicated and heavy in ways she rarely spoke about. Her mother remarried, and life continued, but not without emotional cost. There were experiences she carried silently, shaping her perspective and deepening her sensitivity. She didn't immediately share these parts of her story. Instead, she absorbed them, letting them settle beneath the surface. When she eventually spoke about those years, it was with restraint and clarity, not anger. The weight of those experiences didn't disappear. It simply transformed into something she could carry forward without letting it define her entirely. Leaving home and searching for direction. By 17, she left home out of necessity rather than ambition. Her early adult life was a series of jobs that paid bills but offered little meaning. She worked in restaurants, sold products door to door, painted houses, and spent time in offices that felt emotionally draining. Each role taught her something subtle but important: how to observe people, how to adapt, how to endure. These weren't glamorous years, but they were formative. She was learning, without realizing it, the foundation of performance: understanding people, reading energy, and knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet. The first step onto the stage. One night, almost accidentally, she stepped onto a small stage at a local venue. There was no grand plan, no polished act, just instinct. When the audience laughed, something shifted. It wasn't just validation, it was recognition. For the first time in years, she felt aligned with something real. Comedy became more than a talent. It became a lifeline. Each performance allowed her to transform pain into connection. The laughter wasn't just entertainment, it was proof that her voice mattered. That moment marked the beginning of a path that would slowly pull her out of obscurity. Grinding through the comedy circuit, the journey forward was far from easy. She performed wherever she could, often traveling long distances for brief stage time. The comedy world of that era wasn't welcoming, especially for women. It was dominated by expectations she didn't fit. Still, she persisted. She refined her voice through trial and error, learning from every audience reaction. Recognition came slowly, including a notable early career breakthrough that hinted at her potential. But success wasn't immediate. It was built through repetition, resilience, and a refusal to abandon a path that felt true, even when progress was slow. Building a different kind of comedy. Her style stood apart. Instead of harsh or aggressive humor, she focused on observation, finding meaning in everyday moments. Her approach was thoughtful, precise, and often gentle. This distinct voice allowed her to connect with audiences in a way that felt personal and authentic. Over time, that connection grew into something much larger. She wasn't just telling jokes, she was creating a shared experience. People trusted her perspective. That trust became the foundation of everything that followed, eventually evolving into a brand built not just on humor, but on a sense of emotional safety. The rise and the backlash years later, at the height of her success, that carefully built identity faced intense scrutiny. Allegations about workplace culture and personal behavior began to surface, challenging the image she had spent decades creating. What made the situation particularly powerful was the contrast. The kinder the brand, the harsher the criticism felt. Individual stories combined into a narrative that was difficult to ignore. The public began to question not just the show, but the authenticity of the person behind it. The very message that had defined her career became the lens through which everything was judged. The end of an era. She continued her show for a time, but something had changed. The energy that once fueled it was no longer the same. Eventually, she announced its conclusion. Officially, it was framed as a natural ending. Unofficially, it reflected a deeper shift. The joy had faded, replaced by the weight of controversy and exhaustion. When the final episode aired, it marked more than the end of a television program. It marked the closing of a chapter that had defined nearly 2 decades of her life. The routine, the audience, the daily rhythm, all of it disappeared. Life beyond the spotlight. After stepping away, she chose a quieter life. Without the constant demands of production, she faced a different question. Who is she without the show? She and her partner settled into a slower, more private routine. Away from the spotlight, life became less about performance and more about presence. The structure that once defined her days was gone, replaced by something more open and uncertain. Yet, within that uncertainty was also freedom, the chance to exist without the constant pressure of expectation, judgment, or the need to maintain a carefully constructed public image. Outro: a legacy beyond perfection. Her story is not clean or simple. It is layered, complicated, and deeply human. She built something powerful, lost control of its narrative, and stepped away when it no longer felt sustainable. What remains is not just a legacy of success or controversy, but a reminder that public figures are never as one-dimensional as they appear. Behind every message is a person shaped by experiences we rarely see. In the end, her story is less about being perfect and more about persistence, the quiet, ongoing decision to keep moving forward, even when the world is no longer applauding.